I remember when my role was stressed out woman. I was returning from a speaking engagement in upstate New York. It was in the fall of 2012, and there was literally a hurricane on my tail. Weather forecasts were saying that the worst storm to hit that area in years was coming fast. And I called my husband Hugh, and I asked him to pray that I would get home that night because I'd already been away for 2 weeks, and I did not want to spend another few days stranded in an East Coast airport. You know, the airlines, when there's natural disasters, they don't buy hotels for everybody there. You're just stuck. You're just stuck there, and it's not a good situation. And as I waited to board my plane in Albany, New York, television sets all over the terminal were reporting updates on Superstorm Sandy. The skies were darkening by the moment, and I was praying. But my prayer was more like Pastor Tim's this morning. You know, the whiny type of prayer where you don't really believe what God is going to do. God, I really want to be home by the end of the evening. God, please don't let me stay here in this airport for another few days. God, I don't even want to think about being stranded here. God, you're bigger than this storm. Will you please just get me on this plane? But as I'm saying this, there is fear, and there is that thought in the back of my head that expects God to do the worst case scenario. Do you ever get that way? Oh, I'm so ashamed of myself. I should know better. I write books about how to not do that. And yet in that moment, it was just that churning inside of me. And even as I said it, as I prayed it and felt that fear, I was frustrated that I couldn't control my circumstances. And I suddenly realized God still has a work to do in me. He has a breaking to do in me. And my eyes teared up, and I surrendered that area of my life to my Lord once again, that area that is so hard to let go of, and that's that desire and need to be in control of whatever's happening. And I said, God, I do not have control over what's happening right now, but you do. You are God, and I am not. And God, I do not want to stay here in this airport. You know that. But God, if I do, I know you're going to provide for me. And God, I know you can still this storm or divert this storm right now. But God, if you choose not to, I know that you're going to take care of me. I know that you're the kind that can still the storm outside, and you can still that storm in me as well. And God, would you rid me of that reservation, of that thing I hold on to when I think that you might do the worst? What kind of faith is that anyway? God, I trust you to be God, and I ask you would give me that peace. And as I prayed that, the truth of Philippians 4, 6 and 7 became reality for me. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. The peace that came through that prayer, or maybe it was through my surrender, swept over me, and I began to look around and listen and notice things around me. I noticed people who apparently didn't know God, who were freaking out at the possibility of a storm that was coming, and they didn't know what to do. And I had to ask myself, is that what I look like on the stage of this airport? Because God, I want people to look at my life and know there's a difference because of who I know and who I'm trusting. And I heard some women, some elderly women who were fearful about getting home in time to get some medication. And I observed some disabled people who were far from the people that were there to take care of them, and they were worried about not being able to get home and not being able to get the help that they needed. And I suddenly realized it could be so much worse. Can't it always be so much worse? I've talked to women in situations that I can't imagine. They'll say, oh, but you know what, if I had to go through such and such. And then that person who went through such and such says, oh, I can't imagine going through what you've gone through. But you know what? God knows. God knows what we're capable of, what we're incapable of, what will make us truly depend on him. And I don't believe God won't give you more than you can handle. I believe God often gives you more than you can handle, so you will trust him to handle it for you. And he knows what's going to happen in our lives that will cause us to surrender, and then he gets us through. I ended up boarding my plane, and 10 minutes before our scheduled departure, our pilot came on the speaker and he says, folks, It looks like everyone who's supposed to be on this plane is already on this plane, so we're going to take off about 10 minutes early. There is quite a storm on our tail, and I have every intention of outrunning that storm. So I'm going to ask that you buckle up, say a prayer, and let's hope for the best. And with that, we took off, and that good old bless his heart Southwest Airlines pilot actually outran that storm. We hit our connecting flight a half hour early so that we were out of the East Coast in plenty of time to miss that. I got home to San Diego where there was no indication of any bad weather at all, and you can hate me for that statement right now if you want. And as I entered the terminal in San Diego, the TVs all over the terminal were reporting that the fiercest storm to hit the Atlantic seaboard was already shutting down flights across the East Coast. And friends at my church and family members were calling home to see if I'd made it. My husband was taking each call, and he had assured every one of them, yep, by God's grace, she got out just in time. We later learned that Hurricane Sandy was the deadliest and most destructive hurricane of the 2012 hurricane season, as well as the second costliest hurricane in the United States history, next to Hurricane Katrina. God could take care of me in that disaster. You know, I slept so peacefully that night, and it wasn't just because we outran that storm and I was in my own bed. It's because peace comes through surrender. I'm convinced I would have still slept peacefully in that airport if I had to be there, because God's peace wraps us up like a warm blanket, no matter what our circumstances are. And there is relief knowing we don't have to control our circumstances. The writer of our script already has it all worked out. That night, I dropped the role of stressed girl who tries to control, and I let God redefine my role as rested girl who leans on the only one who's in control.